Great. So, if we could just go around each person, it'd be great to hear like who is on the call, what school you're currently in, and what subject you teach. So, let me just get the list of you up. Okay, so I'm just going to go around in the order of people that are appearing on here. So, Ali, do you want to go first? Hello? Okay, I'm going to move on to Charlotte. If you could unmute yourself.
Hello?
Oh, hi, Ali. If you just say hello, your school and your subject, please.
Yeah, hi. My school's Rainer Stevens High School, and my subject is business and computing.
Thanks, Ali. Charlotte? Charlotte, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, sorry. I'm Charlotte. I'm teaching history, and I'm at Manchester Enterprise Academy.
Thanks, Charlotte. Chris?
Hi, can you hear me as well?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right, Chris, Burnish Academy for Boys, teaching English.
Thanks, Chris. Joe?
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, can hear you.
Yeah, Joe, teaching at John Henry Newman in Oldham, teaching English.
Thank you, Joe. Katie?
Year 3 at Yak Blakely Academy.
Thanks, Katie. Omna? I know you've done it in the chat, but...
Hi, I'm teaching Year 5 at Mount Carmel Roman Catholic Primary School in Blakely.
Okay, that's great, thank you. And Sarah?
Hi, I'm teaching geography at Walkton High in Salford.
Thanks, Sarah. And I think that's everyone. Have I missed anyone off from there? Please introduce yourself now if I have. Okay, so before we start, it'd be really helpful for Claire to hear what you're thinking of next year in terms of your next steps career-wise, because we've got a lot of information about different support that could be open to you depending on your next steps. So basically, we don't want to spend the call talking about things which aren't helpful for you. So I'm going to ask you in a minute through a survey to indicate where you think you're going to be next year. If you don't feel comfortable sharing that because you haven't actually told your school your plans for next year, then that's fine. Feel free not to answer it. But if you do know what you're doing next year and you are happy to share it, then I'm going to put a survey up now. So you should be able to see it in a moment. Okay, so you should be able to see the different options on the board. So are you staying in school or staying in school with a TLR? Are you moving school or have you moved school for promotion? Are you staying in education but not in teaching? Are you moving out of education altogether? Are you going abroad? Are you going back to study or other? So that might be you're not too sure yet. So we've got a real span of people on the call. Okay, so we'll make sure that this call provides a broad overview. I'm sure Claire will explain when she starts to deliver her part of the session that Claire's kind of the holder of broad high-level information about the offer. If you need more specific information, then we can make sure that we signpost you on to relevant people afterwards. So I'm just going to get PowerPoint again. Okay, great. So I'm now going to share a board with you, and on that board I would like you to please note down what you want to get out of today's session, just so we can check that your needs are met in the call. And then if you are already engaged in any ambassador activity, then please let us know. So you may or may not be aware that if you're a futures mentor or if you've applied to do that, that is part of being an ambassador. It's one of the options. If you've done a summer project before, if you've had a coach, all of those things are things which will be open to you as an ambassador as well. So we're just kind of curious to hear, what are you currently already accessing? So I'll just put the board on now. Okay, and to type, you just press the little right-hand box, like the box with the A in it. So just give a few minutes for you to mind map and respond to those two questions. Okay, thank you for your questions and for sharing information about what you're currently involved in. What we're going to do is we're going to start the content of the call now, and then we're going to come back to this board at the end. So if there's anything that we've not covered during the call, then we'll answer it at the end or signpost you onto the correct person. So thank you for that. So I'm now going to pass you on to Claire, who'll tell you a little bit about her background. And also go through with you, hopefully, the answers to the questions that you posed just now.
Okay, thank you, Mel. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Claire. Like I said, I'm the local engagement officer, or we affectionately term that as Leo, at Teach First. I actually come from a teaching background, so I taught for 2 years. I did a PGCE at Manchester and taught MFL, and then following that I worked for teaching leaders who then went on to become Ambition School Leadership, and I supported their alumni network in the North and in the Midlands there. So got quite a bit of experience in kind of different areas in supporting middle and then senior leaders when we became Ambition School Leadership. And I joined Teach First last July, and I've been in post ever since. So I just want to talk to you today a little bit about the ambassador community and the impact. So I'm going to speak a bit about the national picture and then zoom in so that you've got an idea of the Northwest picture. I noticed that a couple of you in the screen before mentioned that you're going abroad, so I will address that as well, and hopefully address most of the questions that you've put on the board as well. We'll come back to that board at the end, so that if anything wasn't answered or if anything else has popped into your mind in between, we can make sure that you leave today with an answer or with a promise to get you an answer. So before we dive in, I think this was on the board actually, but does anyone know what we mean when we say ambassador? What do we mean by an ambassador at Teach First? Feel free to unmute, feel free to pop thoughts in the sidebar.
Is it just people that have completed the Teach First program and all the kind of additional Teach First leadership bits, so like all the data, going to the conferences, doing your Blue Sky?
Yeah, that is a near perfect answer. Thank you. So yeah, it's basically what you said there. So it's anyone who's completed the LDP successfully and has met all the core requirements. So that's what you were talking there about, the attendance at conference days, submitting your data and so on. And I would say that, and to add to that, you automatically become an ambassador if you've done those things. So we'll just move to the next slide. Yeah, so that is spot on. It's pretty much what we had there. And what I would say as well is it's not something that you have to opt into. And if you move away, so if some of you are going abroad, if you leave teaching, for example, you don't have to then kind of sign up again. It's like you're an ambassador for life, basically, once you're in. And I would emphasize that, you know, as an ambassador, you're part of a unique network. As I mentioned, I did a PGCE, and I don't have all of those kind of benefits that you guys will have when you're ambassadors. It's fair to say it's probably quite limited what you get from that route into teaching. So, you know, you've done this particular route and that comes with these advantages. So I just encourage you from the outset to just make the most of it. Yeah, and kind of don't forget that common thread that brought you all together in the first place, which is the LDP, and making a difference to the pupils that need it the most in this country. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about my role, and for those of you that are going abroad, this will be particularly useful as well. So as I mentioned, I'm a local engagement officer, and that means that once you complete the programme, from kind of end of summer, start of autumn, I become your first point of contact when you become an ambassador. And there's an equivalent of my role in each of the local areas across the country. As you can see here, London, we literally have thousands of ambassadors there, so they've got 4 different points of contact there. So basically, if you move and you're not sure who your point of contact would be, you can always find out who that would be by emailing our generic inbox, which is pretty straightforward to remember. It's just ambassadors@teachfirst.org.uk. Now, if you're moving abroad, if you email that inbox once you're abroad, they'll be able to tell you who at that point is your point of contact, because you will have someone, but that one changes probably more often than the others. But you will still get a bulletin. So basically every region gets their own ambassador bulletin, and that is the main way that as local engagement officers we keep you updated with all of the ways that you can get involved in the ambassador offer, local events that are going on, kind of the latest CPD that you can access and so on. So it's really worth keeping us up to date on where you are so that you can make sure that you're getting the most relevant information through to you from Teach First once you're no longer on the programme.
Can I just chip in there as
Yeah.
well? It's also worth saying, if you know that you're moving to another area, we can put you in touch with a Leo from that area at this stage, just to introduce yourself, and they will hear about opportunities which are specific to that local area. So if that is something that you're doing, if you're definitely going to be transitioning to the West Midlands, for example, then do let your LDO know, and they will make sure that they link you up with a local engagement officer in what will be your local area in September.
Great. Do you want to mention the 4?
Oh yeah, so to support with that, and to support that we capture where you're going to be next year, in half term 5, LDOs will be meeting with you one-to-one, and part of that will be to complete the ambassador preference form. So at that point you'll be able to tell us what are your plans for September and what is the best way of us keeping in touch with you. So at that point it's super important that we have correct contact details for you. I know I've got lots of my participants' current school email addresses, for example. So if you are changing schools, then please make sure that your LDO is aware of the best way of you being contacted and communicated with in future.
Great, thank you, Mel. So wanted to give you, like I said, a snapshot of our national ambassador community. So you will be joining a community. It currently stands at just over 7,000 ambassadors. So that's obviously going to grow to over about 8,000, I think, when your cohort graduates from the programme. So yeah, they're working in a variety of different fields. So as you can see, the majority do remain in teaching beyond the LDP, and others go on to work in a range of different fields, mainly social social enterprises, sometimes ones that they've set up themselves, business. So we've got a lot of partners, for example, like PwC, Accenture, and so on, where we've got quite large groups, particularly around London, of ambassadors working there, and they've almost got the kind of like Accenture and PwC, that kind of have their own Teach First sort of network there as well. So you will definitely stay engaged if you're heading somewhere there. And what I would say is basically this shows that, you know, our ambassadors are a very varied group, but you are a very kind of powerful group. And what I would encourage you to do is think more and more on a national level. So up until this point during your time in the LDP, you'll have had a lot of contact with the other people in your region and in your kind of sub-regional area. When you're an ambassador, we really encourage you to kind of broaden your mindset and think of yourself as part of this national network, because individually you're all really impressive, of course, but thinking about the collective impact that you can have as a group, it's really impressive kind of as a whole network. So just encourage you to kind of you know, be brave in reaching out to other members of the network who you might not have met before, who might not be based in the Northwest, for example.
Any questions on that before we move on?
When you say reaching out, how do you mean? Do you mean you have to already have their name and search them up, or is there some sort of database where you can like find people?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we've got obviously the community website, which you will already be familiar with. There's a directory on there, and the ambassadors are in there as well. As to kind of how up to date their profiles are, that is a different question. But that is a good starting point if you want to try and reach out to an ambassador, for example, who's working in a particular role or in a particular area. I'll speak a little bit more about this later on. Actually, we've got a new network called Connect, and that's another way, but I'll go into a little bit more detail about that later on.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, feel free to put them in the chat as well if they come up during the course of the call.
Great, and also your local engagement officers, we all work really closely together. So if you did want us to pair you up with someone in particular, we can facilitate those connections for you as well. So yes, our ambassador community, just looking at what they do kind of beyond the day-to-day roles as well. So a lot of them go on to become governors, which can be a really good way of gaining a kind of broader perspective on how school runs, and kind of like the whole school perspective from a really strategic point of view as well. And I'd strongly encourage you, whether you want to remain in the classroom or not be on the LDP, to have a look at that. We have a lot of non-teaching ambassadors who are governors, and they really enjoy kind of that as a way of staying in touch with the kind of what's going on in education. Futures, which you're probably familiar with as well. So we have lots of our Futures mentors are ambassadors, and we find that ambassadors make particularly good mentors because of their experience from the LDP, but also you know, their experience working with young people, and then the skills that they might have gained beyond the LDP as well. And as you can see on here, like I mentioned before, lots of our ambassadors have gone on to set up social enterprises. And in terms of those who have stayed in the classroom, we've got 33, and that number is increasing, who are head teachers, which is great. We have a network for those head teachers, and we're also looking at ways in which that network can support the up-and-coming head teachers of the future. So watch this space for more on that. Okay, zooming in a little bit more now to the Northwest. So we currently have 500 ambassadors in the Northwest. When you guys complete the LDP, that will grow to just over 600, so increasing every year. And as you can see as well, we've got an overview of what our ambassadors are doing in the Northwest. So you can see at a glance there that we've got a higher than national average for those who are staying in teaching, which is great. Quite a few working in business, and then kind of the biggest area then after that for us is charities and social enterprises. Anyone who is a mathematician will notice that this doesn't add up to 100%. That's because we don't have 100% of the destination information for our ambassadors. So this again is just kind of a message to, do keep us updated on what you're doing. Obviously, we tailor some of the opportunities that we have according to what we understand our ambassadors to be doing. But we can only do that if we obviously know where you are and if we've got up-to-date details and contact details for you. I'm just going to have a look at the question in the sidebar here. Yeah, so that's a really good question. So if you moved region but did your PGC at Sheffield, you're still in the Northwest once you've finished and moved abroad. So if you move abroad, you would be classed as an international ambassador. And that is kind of like regardless of where abroad you're based, and you would have a point of contact, like I mentioned earlier. Then if you move back, you would get in contact with us, hopefully via the ambassador inbox, and we would pair you up with the most suitable local engagement officer depending on where you're going to be based. So it's done based on where you actually are as opposed to where you did the LDP, if that answers your question, Sarah. Okay, great.
Wow, sounds exciting plans for Sarah.
I know.
Okay.
So moving on to the career development opportunities and support, and again, I would have tailored this if we had sort of all of you staying in the classroom, for example, but as we've got quite a wide range of destinations, it looks like I'm going to go through this quite quickly, but in full. So yeah, basically, as an ambassador, you can access support depending on kind of what pathway you want to take beyond the LDP. So you can see that outlined at a high level here. So if you want to stay in school, this is brand new, so it's not even on the website yet, I don't think. So we had something called a school pathway before, but in future we're going to have NPQs, so National Professional Qualifications, and I'll speak a bit more about them in a moment. If you want to work in education policy, public affairs, or the third sector, we can offer you some support with that as well, and that's something that we're currently developing, so it will become more and more substantial than it looks in this presentation today. If you want to volunteer, I'll flag how you can do that as well, but I would say that you're probably quite aware of that because it's quite similar to what you'll have seen as a participant. And then if you've got an idea to improve education, we've got our innovation unit and innovation partners who we work with who can support you to develop your ideas. Okay, so I mentioned the professional qualifications. Like I said, hot off the press, this one. So these are going to be available. They're going to be free, which is amazing. And they are tailored to your relevant leadership level. So MPKML for middle leaders, SL for senior leaders, and MPQH for headship. The 18-month programs, like it says here, we're going to be starting them from October 2018. So what I'd say is there's an email address there. If that's something that takes your fancy now, you can find out a bit more information by emailing that inbox. We will obviously keep you updated as this develops, and the way that we'll do that when you're an ambassador is via the bulletin. So I'd say just really keep an eye out for that bulletin. You'll be used to them as a participant fortnightly. As an ambassador, you'll get a monthly bulletin. So I'd say do make time to read that to make sure that you don't miss these kinds of opportunities and when the timeframes are to apply for them.
After this call as well, we will send around this PowerPoint as well, so you will have access to the various email addresses that have been referred to. Any questions at this point? Okay, we're going to carry on. If you do have any, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll answer them as we go through.
Okay, so volunteering, touched upon governors before, so we have links with, they're called Governors for Schools now, so we can signpost you to support in becoming a governor through them. We've also got lots of ambassadors who are governors, so I can always pair you up with someone if that's something that you're interested in learning more about. Futures mentoring is one that I'm sure you're familiar with already, and Easter School is a really nice opportunity to support our access sort of outreach work. So this is where you can volunteer to support a trip to Oxford or Cambridge to basically give disadvantaged young people the opportunity to see firsthand what going to university is about, to kind of give them the confidence to kind of aim high in their applications. Lots of our ambassadors really enjoy getting involved with that, so I'd really encourage you, if that's something that you're interested in, to apply when that comes around next year. Volunteer with an innovation partner. So again, like I said, we've got lots of links locally and nationally, and that can be in charities, social enterprises, who we work with regularly. So again, we'll let you know of any opportunities that come up there. And ambassador associates. Now, this is a really nice opportunity, and you might have actually seen some ambassadors working in this way during your time on the LDP. Now, as an ambassador associate, you can basically sign up to support current participants on the LDP, and that can be in a one-to-one capacity. That could be, for example, working with a participant to support them with lesson planning. It can be kind of at a broader level, so if you want to develop your public speaking skills, then you can support facilitation. Oh, just got one person joining us. You can support facilitation at conference days, for example. And if you're more into the curriculum side of things, we occasionally have opportunities for ambassadors to feed into like curriculum changes to the LDP. So lots of different ways to get involved. We'll send you around the latest link when you become an ambassador, and you basically sign up, and you get to choose kind of what would interest you the most. What I just say about that one is obviously it's really dependent on the need locally, so it's one that kind of is quite ad hoc, so there's not really any sort of specific time frame for those opportunities. Any questions about volunteering before I move on? Okay, I'd just say for all those opportunities, they're a great way to kind of enhance your CV and get a bit more experience, you know, whether you're wanting to develop your career in school or beyond a school context. Okay, got a few different coaching options open to you as an ambassador, and again, you might be familiar with this from your time as a participant. So this one I'd refer to as our one-off coaching sessions. So we have a dedicated careers coach called Natasha. She's based in London, and as an ambassador, you are entitled to a 1 hour coaching session, one-to-one with her, and that would obviously be remote and done via Skype. And what I say to our ambassadors when I refer them to Natasha is that this is a really useful one for if you're kind of like at a crossroads and you're sort of, you know, your career could go one direction or the other. So for example, ambassadors that I speak to say, you know, I'm not sure whether I want to stay in teaching. I've started to research roles in education charities, but I'm just not sure what to do. And I would refer them to Natasha, and she goes through kind of, she tailors it according to what the ambassador needs at that time. So I'd really encourage you, and we've included the sign up link, or we will include it in the materials that you get after the webinar.
Yeah, just to add to that as well, lots of our 2016 participants are accessing this service at the moment, for people who are looking for roles in other schools and aren't too sure about how to go about it, or like Claire said, people who are just not sure what they're going to do next year and want a bit of support with it. She can also provide support with like your CV and application forms, which is really useful if you're trying to think about how do you translate your teaching experience into another context. So yeah, I would really recommend signing up to one of those. So your free service, really flexible in terms of what the hours of day and things like that. And I've had really good feedback from people that have accessed that.
Yeah, she obviously can provide a service kind of after the school day and after the working day, because, you know, not all of our ambassadors are free from 3 o'clock, for example, in the afternoon. Okay, so that's the one-off career coaching. In terms of other ways to get involved and develop your skills, we've got summer projects, which again, I know for a fact that one of you on this call has done, and these are basically 1 to 3 week internships. As it says on the tin, taking place over summer. So this is one that's really, I would encourage anyone to do, but especially if you're going to stay in the classroom, but you want to develop some additional skills. And this year, I believe that they're going to be advertised on the community website from the 12th of March, so next week. So keep an eye out on there if that's something that you're interested in. Again, a really good way to just gain an insight into different fields, and to kind of just broaden your skill set. And that is going to be really useful whether you're staying in the classroom or not. You know, consider doing a summer project, even if you definitely are going to stay in the classroom, because it's amazing the skills that you can take back into the classroom from a completely different context. Okay, not going to go into too much depth on this one because again, it's one that I'm sure that you're familiar with as a participant, but just a reminder, it's open to ambassadors as well. So we have like a longer term coaching program, and this is where you're linked with a coach from outside the world of teaching, so a coach from business who's trained. So again, we will let you know when the kind of application window is open for one of these coaches as an ambassador. But just to remind you that that is still going to be something that you can access beyond the LDP. Okay, I mentioned briefly, obviously not everyone is going to be staying in the classroom. So if you want to pursue a career in policy, public affairs, or third sector, we do have some quite light touch support available on this front at the moment. But again, it's something that we're going to be developing further longer term. So at the moment, this looks like an e-newsletter that you can sign up to. It's got lots of job adverts in there, lots of kind of signposts to news and updates and resources. So I just give a shout out to the community website on there. So just have a look at that in the careers section. There are lots of guidance and tips on there, not just for those that want to stay in the classroom. And also CV and interview support. So again, Natasha can support with this. I'm also happy to have a look at your CV if you're thinking of changing career, and can give you some kind of general feedback on that as well.
Okay, so we're just going to pause there for a moment for any questions, if you've got any. There's been quite a lot of information given there around different support that would be available to you depending on what option you're going to do next. So I'm just going to pause for a couple of seconds. Feel free again to put questions in the chat if that's better for you.
Hi, Mel. Sorry, could you just confirm where you can sign up to that one-to-one coaching?
For the careers coaching?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you out the link after the call, Chris. We'll send it out to everyone. You can sign up through the community website if you want to do it like this instant, but I will send it out to you within 24 hours. And I think I've sent it on a previous email to you as well, Chris, if you just have a little look there.
Okay, will do. Cheers.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so now is the moment for it all to go wrong, and we're going to have a game of Kahoot to see what you've retained from all the information that you've just been given. So if you have downloaded Kahoot, now is your time to open it up. And I'm going to show you the login screen in a moment. Hang on a minute. I'm not even presenting the desktop. There we go. Right. That's better. I should be able to see it now. Right. Let's introduce pins. So please put in your pins. Does everyone know how to play Kahoot? Okay, right, we're going to get started on our questions. Can everyone see the screen? I'm assuming you can. So first question, what percentage of our ambassador community stay in teaching? Okay. Well done, Ali, you were the fastest. Next question. There's more males than females ambassadors. True or false? Okay, well done, Ali, again. Next question, what's the approximate number of Northwest ambassadors?
Very false answer there.
Yeah, so we've got about 500 at the moment, and you will hopefully be joining to make that 600 in September. What percentage of Northwest community work in business? Great, so yeah, contrary to popular belief, the majority of people who do teach first do stay in teaching. Like the statistics are quite similar to people that train through different routes. And then our final question, what does the acronym LEO stand for?
Well done.
Great, so yeah, your local engagement officer is Claire, obviously, and she is the person who will be looking after you on completion of the programme. Right, I'll just get our PowerPoint back up.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit now about how to connect you, or how you can connect with the wider ambassador community. And I think this will hopefully answer the question earlier about ways that you can connect online. So I'm going to talk about online and in person, as well as local and national opportunities. So in terms of local opportunities, got a couple of pictures here to kind of like bring it to life a bit more for you. So the Northern Ambassador Network is the picture that's at the top there, and that's a network that takes place, that meet up once a year, and we've got like a kind of steering group of ambassadors who help to design and kind of curate the content for that event. It's made up of ambassadors from across the north, as the name says, so those that are in the northwest, northeast and Yorkshire and the Humber. And my role actually at Ambition School Leadership covered those three local areas. So personally I tend to think of quite a like broad northern kind of perspective of things, and we've really found that ambassadors really value the opportunity to meet up with others that are in a similar but not identical kind of local context to them. A lot of the issues that you're facing are, quite similar across the north, I think it's fair to say, and quite a similar geography up here. So we found that really, really useful. And the last one, as you can see, was really well attended. We got one of our ambassadors who's an MP, Stephanie Peacock, to come along and speak at that as well, which was really great to give that kind of sort of perspective from kind of politics, but also from someone within the Teach First community as well. Northwest Socials, so you'll be familiar with these hopefully as a participant. We do open them up as well where we can to ambassadors, so I'd really encourage you to still keep coming along to them. We try and hold them in as many areas as we can, so if you move around in the northwest, hopefully there'll be one near to where you're going to be based. And again, I'd say just if you're not sure whether to go to them because you're not sure whether you'll know anyone, just be open-minded, because you could meet someone that's teaching down the road from you that you don't yet know, that teaches the same subject and did the LDP, but they just happen to do it 2 years before you, who you could really learn a lot from. Northwest Policy Network. So this is a group of ambassadors who want to meet up basically to discuss the latest in education policy, and what that looks like from a Northwest perspective, and how can you respond to that as a community and support each other. So if that's something that you're interested in, please do get in touch with me. I'm really kind of keen to hear from anyone who'd be really interested in kind of like moving that network forward as well. Northwest Action Network is another one. They've got a snazzy new logo. They seem to have gone for orange. So this is, again, one that's made up of participants and ambassadors. It's really kind of regional focused. It has got like a national dimension to it as well that I'll speak about in a moment. But again, this one is sort of in terms of supporting your experience and helping to develop it from a Teach First perspective, whether that's your ambassador experience or participant experience. But it's also got another dimension in that we want to basically spot ways that we can improve education in the Northwest community through action projects. So again, please get in touch if that's something that you're interested in. Happy to put you in touch with the chairs, who you might already know because they're both 2016s. And then an MFL network we've got, so we don't have any MFL specialists on the call, I don't think, so I'm not going to dwell too much on that, but basically we if there is interest, we're very happy to support the development of subject-specific networks. So I've noted that quite a few of you on the call here are English specialists, for example. So if you're interested in meeting up with others from the Ambassador Network to kind of plan or talk about the latest kind of issues for your subject, then do get in touch if that's something that you'd be interested in taking a role on. I'm really happy to support you.
We just had a question that came through then around the policy newsletter. How do people sign up for newsletters through different strands?
Yeah, so I think that one is, if you look for it on the website, we can get you the specific link. I'll actually take that away as an action. So it should be on the community website if you search in careers, and then in the policy careers and kind of like outside the classroom section. There should be a link in there, but I will make sure that we get you the latest one and send that through to you afterwards.
Okay, great.
Okay, in terms of national opportunities to connect, so I mentioned local Northwest Action Network, and basically we have every term a national action network, and that is where we bring together the chairs and a couple of reps from each local area to meet up nationally, and it takes place in a different region each time. It's a really good opportunity to kind of find out what other action networks are doing across the country. You get to work closely with the Teach First president as well in that capacity, and they're often held at schools, so it's a nice chance to sort of get a kind of nosy into what is going on in different schools. So yeah, that is a really good way of kind of broadening your network, like I said at the start, just thinking from a more national perspective. In terms of face-to-face opportunities as well, you'll already be familiar, I'm sure, with the Impact Conference that was held this year in Wembley, in London. We also have, after the conference, usually an ambassador dinner. So it's a very kind of glamorous, like ticketed event. We get ambassadors from across the country there, and I attended the one obviously last year, and it was really impressive to see the range of things that our ambassadors are doing, and just the sheer number of them, and that was only a small section of them in the room. So again, that's another great networking opportunity there for you. In terms of digital ways to connect, we've got the good old community website that you'll all be familiar with already. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a directory function on there. So I would encourage you to update your profile, because that way others in the network can reach out to you, and hopefully you can do the same, because their profile should be up to date as well. I mentioned Connect as well earlier, and that's the bottom left picture that we've got on here. Now that is, again, quite hot off the press. It's not yet been fully rolled out to our ambassadors, our current ambassador community, but in a nutshell, it's a digital platform to help you to network. It's going to be hopefully more user-friendly than the community website. We've got an app that is currently being signed off by Apple, which is very exciting. that you can hopefully connect a lot more easily on your smartphone and tablet and so on. It's essentially basically a discussion forum where you can search different topic threads. So for example, some of our ambassadors in the South are keen to set up a network for parents to discuss how they balance the job of teaching alongside parenting as well. So they're bouncing a lot of ideas off each other already using the Connect platform. Some of our ambassadors who've taken part in our school pathway CPD that's going to be superseded by the MPQs, they've got a network on here so they can discuss that in a kind of separate group from the main kind of topic forum. This platform is also going to have a directory function on there. So I imagine we will move a little bit away from the community website directory. But in the meantime, I would encourage you to update your profile on both, just because we're sort of in a transition period, and it just maximizes your opportunities for networking remotely with other ambassadors. But to come back to the question from the start, that is kind of where we're moving in terms of bringing ambassadors online a bit more to help you connect with others digitally online. Okay, so that is it from kind of the overview. But what I would say is stay in touch. My name is Claire Fry. You might see my name on the community website as Claire O'Neill, which is my maiden name because I recently got married. So that is the same person if you see that name still out there. I would encourage you to follow me on Twitter as well because, like I said, our bulletin comes out once a month. Occasionally there are some local events, often through our partner organisations, that don't make it into the bulletin because just the timescales don't add up. So I will promote things occasionally on Twitter. If it's anything Teach First led, I'll always email you outside the bulletin if it doesn't fit in with those timeframes. But following me on Twitter, it just gives you a bit more chance to kind of see what's going on locally.
Okay, so before we finish up, I'm going to give you another opportunity to ask questions if you've got them, and also we're just going to return to the board that you wrote on at the start of the session just to check that we have answered the questions that you posted at the beginning. So I think we answered the DOA question. So how do I get back in contact with Teachers to help you with your next steps? So yeah, as Claire said at the beginning, your local engagement officer is determined by where you are at that time, not where you did the programme. So when you're abroad, there will be someone that kind of oversees that, and then when you move back to the UK, depending on where you move to, will depend on who your point of contact is. Hopefully we have outlined what the ambassador offer entails, but please do ask any questions to your LDO directly, or now is the time to do that if you don't feel that question has been answered. In terms of support, Teach First offers for those staying in teaching, so it's going to be the MPQ qualifications, as well as the coaching support, which is relevant, and the networking support. I know Claire did push this at the start of the session, but you are part of a professional network of teachers with people all the way from their first year in the classroom to head teachers. And all of the people who are ambassadors opt to kind of be contacted and offer that support on an ad hoc basis, which most people don't have access to. So that is an informal but invaluable form of support that you've got, as well as the kind of formal professional qualifications that we're going to be offering from next year. In terms of what an ambassador means, hopefully we've answered that as well. So it is about completing your core requirements, but it's about how we can continue to support you throughout your whole career beyond your time on the LDP, and also how you can continue to support us through playing your part, whether that's through staying in the classroom or through being a futures mentor or just supporting at conferences on a more of an ad hoc basis. Like for me, being ambassador is a two-way thing. How can we support you and how can you give back to us as well?
And I'd just chip in there and say that we're really open to ideas. So what I would say to kind of caveat the ambassador offer is that as it says at the top of the A4 that we've emailed to you with all the hyperlinks, it is constantly changing and being updated. And what I'd say is it's different to the LDP in that obviously the content for the LDP needs to be determined, from the start of the year so that we can clearly communicate it to you. With the ambassador offer, it's something that we're constantly innovating with, trying to kind of keep up to date with the latest technology, make it as easy as possible for you to connect with each other. But what that also means is that there's scope for us to kind of offer something different if it doesn't already exist in region, but obviously with the support of ambassadors to make it happen. So we're really happy to kind of support you if there's a gap that you think you'd find useful or something that you're passionate about that you'd like to take a lead on. Please get in touch and we can talk about how we can make it happen. Yeah.
So staying involved with Teach First if you're no longer teaching, other than futures. I think we've talked about some of these things.
Yeah. The policy and social enterprise support, for example, as I mentioned, that is one of the areas of our offer that is currently being reviewed and updated, but that will look a bit more substantial in future. So we're just kind of in a transition with that one at the moment.
And through applying to be a governor as well.
Yeah.
Schools are crying out for it for the moment, especially people who are working in different backgrounds, working in different fields, because you can bring something new to the table. So obviously invaluable to have teachers sat around the table, but great to have that fresh perspective as well. That's something that I would really recommend getting involved in. So what exactly is a springboard? So springboard is basically it's the end of your time on the LDP and your transition into the ambassador community. So in terms of exactly what it is practically, in half term 5 you'll have a conversation with your LDO reflecting on your time on the programme, and then in half term 6 there will be a afternoon celebratory event where you will meet some ambassadors in our community. You'll come together as a cohort one last time. You'll get the most up-to-date information of the ambassador offer. So it's unlikely that this will change that much between now and the end of the year, but if there have been any changes, you'll hear about those. And then there will be a celebration welcoming you into the ambassador community. So I guess it's like the comma at the end of your time on the programme, supporting you to segue into our ambassador community. But built in with that will just be with some support in reflecting on what have you gained from the programme, whether you're staying in the classroom or whether you're not, what are the key skills that you're walking away with, and what are your areas for development going forward, and how can we support you in your continued professional development. So hopefully that's answered that question, and I think we've answered the last question as well. Are there any other questions at this stage? Okay, doesn't sound like it. So if there are, feel free to reach out via email to ask those questions. Tomorrow morning I will send out the resources from today, so you've got a summary of everything that we've gone through, contacts and things like that. The 2 questions which I'm taking away are where to sign up for the policy newsletter. We'll make sure that's included in the email with the resources, and also I'll make sure it's really explicit where you can sign up for the careers coaching appointments as well. If there is anything else, just email me back when I send that out, and we'll get back to you with that. So in the last couple of minutes, just want to do a few half term 4 reminders. So the half term 4 deadline for Blue Sky is the end of March, just the usual for that. So your journal reflection, setting an objective for the next half term and evidencing your objective from last half term. A bit of a shout out for the socials, which have been advertised via the newsletter. Just to clarify, the Manchester one is on the 16th of March and the Liverpool one is on the 23rd of March. I think there might have been a bit of confusion in the bulletin, but the dates here are the right ones. So please sign up to that through the bulletin. And if you need to attend a second conference, then the April conference is the one that you need to be signing up for. Sign-up's not open just yet, but just as long as it's in your diaries. And if you do have any ideas about the content that you would really like to see on that day, please reach out to your LDO and let us know. So we can't grant everyone's wishes in terms of what they want at conference, but this conference coming up has largely been shaped by what we've heard from participants and what they've asked for in terms of support. So if you do feel strongly about wanting a particular session or a particular opportunity at the conference day, then please do let us know. And then finally, the Springboard date will be confirmed within the next week. Okay, so that's all the reminders. So before we log off, it would be great if you could take 30 seconds to fill in our Survey Monkey. I'm just going to put it in the chat now, just to give a bit of feedback on whether you found this session useful or not. Please be honest. And after that, then that's everything. So thank you very much for joining us this evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you at conference day and hopefully at socials over the next few weeks. I don't think we've got any Blackpoolers on the call, and there is going to be a Blackpool social, but it's going to come later in the year. So if you were hoping to attend a social in Blackpool, you've not been forgotten. It's just going to come in half term 6 instead of half term 4. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.